By the end of today's episode, you will know exactly the way that a narcissist trains you to self-abandon and what to do to feel like yourself again so that you can fully recover from narcissistic abuse. Hey, and welcome back. If you have left a narcissist and are looking back with the question of, when exactly did I stop being me? It can feel like such a disorienting place to be, really disorienting at best and terrifying at worst. Because when you're looking back and realizing how much of yourself you lost, it is really eye-opening. And what tends to happen is we start to blame ourselves for being weak enough to be in a relationship or have stayed in a relationship that was chipping away our sense of self and who we were. So today, through this episode, I hope you feel this warm embrace because I want to walk you through 3 things that are really going to help you as you are beginning to rebuild yourself again. The first is understanding why the smallest decisions right now feel like you are climbing Mount Everest and your indecision feels off the charts. The second is understanding how a narcissist actually trains you to stop asking for what you need. And the third is understanding why the story that you're telling yourself about being weak right now is one of the things that's really keeping you from finding your way back to yourself. And remember to stick around to the very end of the episode because I will always pull an oracle card. This offers you a message that you can use this week to stay more conscious in your healing. Okay, so let's take a deep breath and begin. Okay, so let's start with one of the most common experiences and feelings that you have when you get out of a relationship with a narcissist. And likely you've been feeling this for months or years while you're in the relationship, but that is indecision. And right now, for you, it can feel like the simplest decision is feeling like somebody is asking you to climb Mount Everest in flip-flops with no backpack, with no water. You feel like you don't have a map or the right tools to even decide what you want to eat for breakfast. I want to start with a story from my experience of what this felt like, because it happens slowly in this relationship of having your needs be whittled away, and we're going to talk more about that. But it happens so slowly that you don't really realize that you're losing your opinions or your preferences. So after I had broken up with my narcissistic ex, I was going out to ice cream with some friends. And these friends really were my rock. I was very selective of who I was sharing the full, nightmare level details with. And this group of friends was them. It was summer, and we went to this ice cream shop, and I'm standing in line, and I'm like the 3rd or 4th person in our group of friends to go. So my friends are up at the counter choosing their ice cream flavor. And I'm staring at the menu and I am frozen. Like I am in a trauma response. I cannot make my brain understand what I'm reading. And I definitely can't decide on what ice cream flavor I want. As I got up to the counter and the person scooping the ice cream asked me what flavor I wanted, the simplest question in the world, I was paralyzed. I actually could not decide what I wanted. I could not decide what flavor typically is the one that I go for. I could not decide what the right answer would be. I felt like I was paralyzed, and really like the decision fatigue was at its all-time max. And I reverted to saying I'm going to have the same as she did because I literally could not make my brain give me the answer of what I wanted. And of course, not being able to make the decision and feeling that panic mode, I was immediately in self-judgment. I was immediately like, what the fuck is wrong with me? I can't even choose an ice cream flavor. And thank God, when we went and sat down and had our ice cream, I was able to open up to my friends and share, and found that co-regulation from them, and that witnessing and that validation of, God, you have really lost yourself in the most loving way. They were helping me see how throughout the years that I had been with this person, all my preferences became his preferences. All of my opinions became his opinions. All of my hobbies became what he wanted to do. It was just like reorienting myself, conforming chameleoning into him in order to keep the peace. So of course, I felt indecisive and panicked when the person that I had been using for that backboard was no longer there. So if you're feeling indecision right now, it is a byproduct of how long you've spent conforming, contorting, choosing what they wanted, walking on eggshells, negating your needs, all of these things that we do in the relationship in order to stay safe. The second thing that you're likely feeling right now is pretty weak. Like, have you ever been so exhausted at work and a message comes through, someone pings you saying, hey, can you take a look at this? And you want to say, no, you want to say, I'll get to this tomorrow. But instead you say, yeah, no problem. Even though you're tired, even though every part of you is screaming, like, I need to get home and get into my sweatpants and watch Netflix because I can't handle today. Every part of you is saying no. Everything in you is saying that you don't have the capacity, but you immediately respond with, yeah, no problem. It's almost like an immediate override of what you actually want and need in order to keep the peace, in order to not upset the other person. Again, because you've practiced this over and over and over again in the relationship. And I'm going to get to more of the psychology around that in just a second. But you likely have the belief of, if I don't accommodate, I risk disapproval. If I have needs and those are different than somebody else's needs, then I really am going to create tension and it's going to affect me negatively later. So you have just overridden your decision-making process of, is my need more important than their need? Is this urgent or is this not urgent? Everything becomes urgent. Everything becomes about the other person staying not upset at you, and you override your needs almost subconsciously before you even think about it, because it is going into the limbic part of the brain that is keeping you safe. And when you look back at this, when you look back at your behavior, let's say you stay an extra 2 hours at work to help this person with whatever they need, and then you're driving home exhausted and you're like, why the fuck did I do that again? I hate myself. Why did I let that person take 2 more hours of my life? And you can start that self-judgment. You can start beating yourself up. And it usually distills down into this belief that you are weak. You are weak because you let your ex chip away at you. You're weak because you can't set a boundary. You're weak because you put somebody else's needs before your own. So let's talk about the psychology of these types of relationships so you can better understand what was happening that led you to self-abandon in these ways, that led you to be so indecisive and be feeling so weak despite how strong you feel in other parts of your life. When you are a fully embodied person, when you feel like yourself and are living a very aligned, authentic life, you are expressing your needs, you are expressing your wants and your desires, you are having opinions, you're having dreams, you're having goals, you're having these things that are specific to you and your values and your needs and your wants and are not dependent on somebody else liking them or not, right? A fully embodied person feels confident in expressing all of those things. What has happened for you, if you were in a relationship with a narcissist or a narcissistic person, right? There's a scale of narcissism. This person taught you that your needs always come at a cost. So likely in the beginning of the relationship, before things really started to take a nosedive, you were starting to share these needs and share these dreams and share these opinions. And you really thought they were reasonable. You really thought, yeah, in a relationship, I'm able to say what I want and he can tell me what he wants. And then we decide what we're going to do. And there's compromise there. And so these needs started out as reasonable. But what happened was slowly over time, as you were asking for your needs, you were getting this negative reinforcement. So when you asked for something or when you shared your opinion about something, he made it unpleasant. So there was some amount of guilt tripping or sharing that maybe you hurt him or that you don't understand him or you're asking for too much. Or maybe he just straight up was like, you are so difficult. What you need is too much. Like you are a difficult, needy, person. And if you just needed less, then we would have less fights, right? It usually ended in some sort of argument where you were trying to defend that this was a reasonable thing to want, and he was telling you everything counter to why this is wrong, why what you need is wrong. In my relationship, my ex's go-to line was, "Oh God, you're bringing this up again to ruin another weekend." Because any time that I had something that I wanted to talk about that he was not going to agree with, or that he had a differing need or opinion around, I knew it was going to cause conflict because he was slowly showing me that my needs were the problem. My needs always caused the issue. And that was the message that I received. And so when you're in a relationship with somebody and every conversation that you try to have about your needs or your wants turn into World War III, what do you think you're going to do? First, you're going to really start questioning the legitimacy of your needs and start hesitating, right? You're going to question of, oh my gosh, is it too much to ask that I don't want to sit around and watch football all day long, that I want to go out and enjoy a hike, or I want to go do something active? Is that crazy? Is that asking for too much? He's telling me that I'm not respecting his downtime and that I'm being controlling. God, am I? Am I? And you start to really question yourself, and you can't find an answer. So that adds to the amount of feeling crazy. So you're questioning the legitimacy. You're hesitating to even start speaking. Then that voice comes of like, it is not worth it. It is not worth it to ask him to go for a hike with me today when I know that he is going to be pissed off because he wants to lay around and watch football and wants me to be okay doing that with him. And so what do? You lay around and you watch football, or at least I did. That was one of the biggest sticking points in my relationship with my narcissistic ex, was a very big misalignment of values, and then me succumbing to whatever he wanted to do because the threat of the fight was too big. Because after the fight, it was going to be the silent treatment. It was going to be walking on eggshells. It was going to be a matter of time of trying to take space and then hoping we could come back to a conversation, and that conversation not working, and that conversation turning into another fight. And it was almost just like a perpetual cycle of fighting. And so not asking for what I need was the path of least resistance and was the path that made me feel safe, because the fight created a threat that he was going to leave or that I was doing something wrong or both. And that felt too extreme, too big for me to hold. So I was just doing whatever I could to try to keep the peace while sacrificing everything within myself. My needs and my hobbies and my values and my friends were all a part of that. The other fucked up part of this is that when you do stop asking, when you do just sort of go along with whatever they want or stop bringing up the issue, it's like he rewards you. He starts to bring back some of that playfulness. He starts to want to have sex again, right? There's some sort of intimacy or desire that you feel. Or in my ex's case, he was talking about how much growth I had by not picking fights all the time, which is so fucked up and counter to everything. But when I was in it, it really made sense. Like, oh, maybe I am growing because we are able to communicate better when he's not pissed off. So because you're getting this positive reinforcement for sacrificing who you are and what you want, you really learn that self-abandonment brings peace. So I want you to think back to your relationship of, when was some of the beginning of this for you? Do you remember, like I do with this football and the weekends, of like, do you remember the first thing that you really started sacrificing? Is there something that stands out to you? Knowing the psychology of this cycle is going to help you give yourself some compassion, because what you're likely believing, again, is that you're weak. You let this happen. You let this person take you far away from yourself. You let him manipulate you or gaslight you. That's always the first place that we go, is that self-criticism. So you're beating yourself up for being weak. You're beating yourself up for being stupid. And of course, you feel stuck and incapable of finding yourself again or knowing where to start to even like rebuild yourself again because you're stuck in that self-judgment. This way of thinking that I'm weak and I'm stupid and I let this happen, this isn't working because it wasn't about you being weak or stupid. It was about you being conditioned to shrink in order to survive the relationship. This wasn't a strength problem. This was a survival problem. It's like the frog that was put in the pot of water. The pot of water started cold. And then slowly over time, the temperature started turning up. The frog couldn't really feel it because it was happening slowly over time until all of a sudden this frog is boiled to death, which is how you likely feel. And having who you thought you were is gone. When you're stuck in the self-judgment, this doesn't allow you to have the clarity around the manipulation cycle, to understand the psychology of what you were in. And it definitely doesn't allow compassion to come online, which is needed in order for you to heal from this mindfuck. Think about it this way. While you were in the relationship, he really capitalized on your self-judgment as a means to control you, right? If you were judging yourself, if you were feeling weak, if you were feeling stupid, if you were feeling like too much, you were more likely going to silence yourself, which gave him more control. So now that you're out of the relationship and you're still in that self-judgment, which by the way, makes sense because you have used that part of you to stay safe for so long, that part of you, of course, is front and center. But the more time that you stay stuck with that part of you running the show, it's like you're giving him the satisfaction of still having control over you, which is why I feel so passionate about helping women fully detach, because you have physically left. And it took so much for you to physically leave a relationship with a narcissist, like full stop, to get to the point where you are out of the relationship and looking back on it. That is huge. So please, like, give yourself the validation of that took a lot of strength. And I am a strong woman because you fucking are. So to be physically gone, but still mentally stuck is a special kind of hell. What I help women do within my program is get out of that hell. I help them be able to clearly understand what was happening, the manipulation cycle, how you were gaslit, how you were conditioned to lose yourself. And I give them the nervous system healing that's really going to help them be able to find safety, first and foremost, in their body, to be able to heal the abuse that they endured, and be able to heal any wounds from your past that maybe made you more susceptible to being in a relationship with somebody who capitalized on your self-abandonment. And what happens when you do those things with the nervous system tending as the foundation is you can tap into that curiosity and that compassion, and you can release this experience. You can release him. You can release the self-judgment. You can come back into that center self that knows who you are. She feels really far away right now, and I know that because I've been there too. You're like, I don't even know where to start in finding myself. And I can promise you that the more safety that you bring into your body via nervous system work, the more you'll close that gap, that distance between what you feel right now and where you think your self is. Coming back to yourself and rebuilding after you have like been burned to the ground in this relationship, everything you thought about yourself has been obliterated. And so for you to come back and rebuild is going to take a lot of safety in the body. That is the foundation. You don't want to start building a house on sand. The nervous system work, the safety is the foundation that then you can start to rebuild. And the safety in and of itself helps you access the parts of your brain that you need in order to remember and to be creative and to be curious and to try on new things, to feel more confident, to feel more courageous. It really starts with the nervous system, which is why I talk about this so much and feel so strongly about this, because if you're trying to heal from this mind fuckery of being with a narcissist and there's not a nervous system component, you are staying all in your head and all of your protective parts are still online because you have been in survival mode for so damn long. So you need a safe space, you need a safe guide, you need the nervous system work, you need the understanding, the intellect, the analyzation part is important, of course, but that's in tandem with the emotional reprocessing and the nervous system work. And that's the way that I work with clients. So I would love to share more with you about the process and how this could really help you detach fully so that you're not emotionally still hijacked by him in the relationship if you're ready to do the deeper work. I work with women who really want to get to the root of this shit so that they're, of course, finding freedom and they're never repeating this shit again. So if you're called, go to the show notes. There's a link to schedule a free intro session. The session is for me to understand more about where you are, for you to understand exactly how the program works, and the psychology and the evidence-based practices that are going to help you feel like yourself again and fully recover from narcissistic abuse. So that link is in the show notes. Again, that is totally free to come on that call with me. Okay, so let's pull a card to see what the message is for you today. And the card that came out is the guides. Let me find the guides in the book and I'll read to you what it says. You are not alone. You are surrounded by the guides, angels, friends, supporters, and champions. All you need to do is open the door of your heart, ask for help, whisper your prayer, and they will appear. Not because they have to, but because they want to. They are simply waiting for the invitation. Asking for their support, help, or guidance is the key that unlocks the door to manifestation. If you are feeling alone and disheartened, know that this card signals it is time to reach out, to be vulnerable, to ask for what you need and desire. Your guides are standing at the ready. Allow yourself to fall into the collective embrace and notice synchronicities start to show up. I say this at the end of every podcast, and I say it because it is so important. It is that you are not alone. When you're coming out of these relationships, when you're in these relationships, when you're trying to heal from the mindfuck of a narcissist, it feels lonely. It feels scary. It feels like you're lost in the middle of a dark forest. There's so much to try to make sense of and move through. And for you to take with you, the knowing that you're not alone will help to give you some of that sense of safety and that strength. So please remember you're not alone. There are many episodes that you can scroll through that have client story at the end of the title, and that's a good indicator that that's more of a story-based episode for you to hear from women that are in the same exact place as you are. So until I see you in that intro session, until I see you in the next episode, please remember that you are not alone.